Hey everyone, Dark Web Lesbian Raspberries here. With the Halo Infinite BTB multiplayer flight in progress, especially having had last weekend's 4v4 arena multiplayer flight to get acclimated to the game, I thought it would be a good time to go over my thoughts on the multiplayer sandbox, particularly the core weapons of the game, how they perform, what I think needs to be changed, and so on. Particularly, we're talking about the big four, the two spawn weapons, the MA40 assault rifle and the sidekick, and the two precision weapons, the BR-75 and the Commando Rifle. We're going to go over the technical capabilities, as well as my own interpretations of those capabilities, and how I think they need to be altered before Halo Infinite releases. So to start off, let's get into the AR. On a base level, it's a fully automatic rifle with a 36-round magazine, and a rate of fire of 12 rounds per second. It's capable of a 15-shot optimal kill, 12 rounds to the shield, 3 to the head, and a body shot kill of 20 shots, giving it an optimal TTK of 1.25 seconds and a body hit TTK of 1.58 seconds. The weapon gets a 1.4x zoom, notable for providing no performance increases with regards to bloom or accuracy, although it does slightly increase the red reticle range, which does impact aim assist for controller players. The 1.4x zoom also does not hide the radar, and getting shot does not pull you out of zoom. To compare the MA40 to the MA5C from Halo 3, the MA40 is definitely stronger. The MA40 has a 0.15 second faster optimal TTK, with a body hit TTK only 0.1 seconds slower. The MA5C is of course not headshot capable, whereas the MA40 is. The TTK margins are fairly minimal, but they do matter. It's worth noting that the MA40 is slightly more skill-based, while also suffering from the RNG inherent in Bloom. With that said, it's clear that the range advantage posed by the MA40 over the MA5C is severe. The MA5C stops being effective beyond immediate close-range fights, whereas the MA40 is very capable in mid-range fights. For what it's worth, the MA40 also has 4 extra rounds in the mag. The AR's recoil pattern starts off with high initial vertical recoil, which tapers off quickly, and firing in bursts also adds a downwards vertical recoil return after you let go of the trigger, making burst firing slightly more difficult. Bloom reaches its maximum width about the same time as the optimal TTK occurs. The AR, surprisingly, is capable of landing hits reliably pretty much across the map, giving it possibly the longest effective range of any AR in any Halo game to date. While the AR is very unlikely to get a cross-map kill on its own, its first shot accuracy is quite high, and it is more than capable of needling opponents at range, which is a useful trait I'll go into more detail on later. I've found that beyond red reticle range, it's still the most effective to simply hold down the trigger and spray, rather than burst fire, then releasing the trigger to reset bloom once the shields are down and bursting into the head. Next, let's cover the sidekick. It's a semi-automatic pistol with a 12-round magazine. The weapon has a firing delay of 10 frames or 0.16 seconds. It's capable of a 7-shot optimal kill and a 10-shot body kill, giving it an optimal TTK of 1 second, with a body hit TTK of 1.5 seconds. Similar to the AR, the sidekick also gets a 1.4x zoom. The sidekick is notable for a particularly quick swap and reload speed, with a swap speed of only 20 frames or 0.33 seconds before the weapon is actionable, compared to the 37 frames or 0.61 seconds for the AR. It also boasts a fast reload of 40 frames or 0.66 seconds and a slow reload of 1.1 seconds. The sidekick has low recoil but very harsh bloom. Take a look at this clip. Let me explain what you just saw. I fired the sidekick as fast as possible. I checked during editing and my shot placement is frame perfect. At this range, by the time you fire your 7th shot with frame perfect rate of fire, the bloom has reached its maximum width, which means even close range fights such as this one can force you to miss your remaining shots. In practice, the optimal 1 second TTK is extremely unrealistic to actually get, because not only are you going to be trying to hit a moving, strafing target which is firing back, but because if you do fire as fast as you can, you're likely to miss your kill shots. As range increases, so too must your rate of fire decrease in order to ensure you hit your shots. For example, take a look at this. In this clip, I am deliberately slowing down my shots to avoid bloom, and yet, even still, despite my reticle being on their head, and despite the reticle fully resetting, bloom still costs me the kill. With all this said, the sidekick feels extremely unreliable and difficult to use. While its optimal TTK is much faster than the AR's, the AR is much easier to use at all ranges, and in practice, simply spraying with the AR is far more likely to secure a kill. You might argue that the sidekick's purpose is to use the AR to drop shields, then swap to the sidekick for a quick one-tap. But to that I say, if it takes 20 frames to be actionable with the sidekick when swapping to it, you can get off 4 shots with the AR in that time. If your aim is good enough to hit the one-tap with the sidekick, then your aim is good enough to hit their head with the AR and hold it there for 15 frames. On a technical level, just sticking with the AR can actually result in faster TTKs than switching to the sidekick, and that's presuming you hit the one-tap the exact frame you are actionable with the sidekick. If you happen to miss even once, you go from being 5 frames slower to being 15 frames slower, adding 10 frames minimum for each miss. The sidekick feels like a weapon that exists purely for the sake of swapping to when you run out of ammo, which is fine. I think that's a perfectly fine design space for a pistol, and it clearly serves a useful purpose. I think the issue falls more with the AR and the Commando Rifle than with the sidekick. The sidekick is actually, in my opinion, the best designed weapon in the whole sandbox. It's an extremely difficult weapon to use, but when used with high skill, it has a very good TTK. But because the AR is just about as strong, while also being significantly easier to use, the sidekick is rarely capable of exploiting its theoretical TTK advantage. Let's move on to the BR. It's a 3-round burst rifle with a 36-round magazine. It has a rate of fire of roughly 6.2 rounds per second, which is more accurately described in that it takes 9 frames or 0.15 seconds to fire all 3 rounds in a burst, with a 20 frame or 0.33 second cooldown between bursts. It is an optimal 4 burst kill with a 6 burst body kill, giving it an optimal TTK of 1.5 seconds and a body hit TTK of 2.5 seconds. It mounts an optical scope, which, unlike the 1.4x zoom of the AR and sidekick, the BR's scope hides the radar and does increase the accuracy of the weapon and significantly increases the red reticle range. Compared to the Halo 3 BR, the BR75 has a worse optimal TTK at 1.5 seconds compared to 1.36 seconds, while having a faster body shot TTK of 2.5 seconds compared to about 3 seconds. With all that said, the BR has issues, to put it simply. Take a look at this clip. Despite not suffering from bloom, and despite recoil being centered on the target's head the entire time, all 5 bursts missed completely. This would not have been the case had I been scoped in, which is clearly the design intention. If you want to line your shots, zoom in. Because it doesn't suffer bloom, it is more reliable at all ranges, but only while zoomed, as not zooming definitely feels unreliable. It's fine at close range, but all 3 other core weapons have faster TTKs, which leaves it very vulnerable at close range, which is where most engagements take place. Worse still, it's not safe at mid to long range either, as the AR is more than capable of at least landing shots at those ranges, knocking a BR user out of scope, reducing the accuracy of the weapon, and likely causing shots to miss. While the AR user is unlikely to score a kill, barring flawless aim and trigger control, the BR user is unlikely to score a kill either. And against a Commando Rifle, the BR is in an even worse state, as the Commando Rifle is also full auto, in addition to a 60% faster optimal TTK over the BR, and in fact, having a body hit TTK that is only 0.15 seconds slower than the BR's optimal TTK, despite the Commando Rifle having very little reduction in capability at range. Lastly, let's talk about the Commando Rifle. It's a fully automatic precision weapon with a 20-round magazine. It has a rate of fire of roughly 7.5 rounds per second. It has an optimal 7-hit kill with a 12-hit body kill. This gives the Commando a 0.9 second optimal kill with a 1.65 second body hit kill, giving it the fastest optimal kill time of any of the core weapons. It also mounts a 2x scope. Being a fully automatic rifle, the Commando Rifle does suffer bloom, as well as vertical recoil, which is light at the beginning of a burst, but as it reaches the end of the magazine, increases drastically alongside heavy bloom. However, it is not a particularly difficult task to mitigate this recoil, and neither recoil nor bloom has a significant effect until well after the 7-hit optimal kill, which makes it very easy to hit medium to long range perfect kills like this one. At very long ranges, it's easy to tap the trigger to fire in semi-auto, which slows down the TTK, but still leaving it competitive with the BR, and completely eliminating bloom and recoil from the equation, making it just as reliable at range as the BR is. Additionally, at close range, being full auto and having the fastest core weapon TTK, it is superior to the AR and sidekick at those ranges. So what do I think needs to be done? Well, it's very clear to me that out of the core weapons, it's clearly stratified. The Commando Rifle is the big winner. It's great at every range, and its TTK is extremely fast. The AR is a very powerful weapon, forgiving at close range, and more than capable of winning fights at medium range against either of the precision weapons. The BR is weak compared to the AR and Commando, and has even worse TTKs than the sidekick, but it's still much easier to use than the sidekick, which in practice makes it far more reliable. As it stands, the sidekick is the obvious loser out of the bunch. Its TTK is competitive, but it can't effectively exploit that TTK, and it's so unforgiving to use that it's often just easier to stick with the AR. I think the Commando Rifle needs a nerf, pretty badly. It's too strong in too many areas, and it kills way too quickly. I think giving it the AR's recoil pattern, with high initial vertical recoil, which tapers off at the end of the mag, and an increase in recoil and also slightly increased bloom, should do it well to bring it more in line in terms of usability with the other weapons. I also think that adding one shot to the optimal TTK, bringing it to a 1.05 second optimal TTK and a 1.8 second body hit TTK, would again bring it more in line with the other weapons in terms of damage, while also making it more skillful to use and rewarding good aim, trigger discipline, and recoil control with a very fast TTK. However, landing body shots would make you vulnerable to the BR. The sidekick, being the hardest weapon to use, would still have a faster optimal TTK, which suits how difficult it is to use properly, rewarding a truly skilled player with the ability to outplay anyone with a precision weapon, even if the margins are fairly thin. The assault rifle also needs a nerf. I think it would be enough to increase bloom, vertical recoil, and having it start take effect earlier in a spray. I also think a reduction in first shot accuracy is probably needed. The battle rifle needs a slight buff, in my opinion, increasing the red reticle range. Other than that, the real issues lie with the Commando Rifle and AR. Nerfing those will fix the BR space in the meta automatically. In a similar note, with these changes, I don't think a change to the sidekick would be necessary. It would have the fastest TTKs, but with its high bloom and lack of long-range scope, it wouldn't be very often that it could exploit that TTK. Well, that's about all my thoughts on the core weapons. As it stands, the core weapon sandbox is not particularly fun to play, especially considering my Halo 3 background. The best precision weapon in Infinite is the Commando Rifle, a full auto weapon, and the next best weapon is the assault rifle. That feels very strange and doesn't properly reward high skill play, which I don't think is good for the long-term health of the game. I hope 343 listens to community feedback on these weapons and adjusts them accordingly. That's all I have for you today. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll have more content here soon. Take care.